The modern aid movement was born in 1967 in the forests of West Africa. A civil war in the Nigerian province of Biafra inspired a generation of young idealistic doctors to go to Nigeria to help save lives.
I was looking for a locum, rang the BMA who had a locum service, and at the end of a list of GP jobs and things, they said, oh, we've got this job 3 months in Nigeria. And I'd been brought up in West Africa when I was very small. And I thought, right.
I would like you to put a little more into it. Let me hear the shouts of exultation.
I mean, going into medicine is itself a sort of humanitarian decision, if you like. And I'd always been interested, possibly, in being a missionary at that stage of my life. So when the Biafran disaster came along, I actually volunteered to go.
Well, I was a doctor, a young doctor, but I was also an old activist. And this mixture of activism and medicine is very important to understand, because for me and some of us, the rest of the world existed. Africa existed. And the poor people existed strongly.
The very first impression when landing there was the blast of heat that came into the airplane as they opened the door. And the second thing was actually looking around and seeing that there were more black people. You know, there were so many black people. I'd not been in a circumstance where there were, you know, where there was this particular mix, and it was quite striking. Not threatening in any way, but just very exotic for me.
The war pitted separatist Biafran rebels against the Nigerian Federal Army.
Biafra, which calls itself the land of the rising sun, is fighting for the right to be a separate state. And the federal Nigerians are fighting to keep Nigeria one country. It's a bloody and a costly war with bitter feelings on both sides.
In the early days of the conflict, the aid workers, working mostly for the International Red Cross, helped the wounded from the Civil War.
One had very, very little experience of most of the things we were called upon to treat. Running clinics, which were simply immense.
It was a shock, a big shock, because we were young doctors, proud to be well-educated, good doctor, coming from a rich country with a medical tradition, and we realized that all our knowledge was absolutely useless.
The Biafran rebels proved no match for the greater numbers and firepower of the Nigerian Federal Army, which was backed by Britain, the former colonial power. Within 10 months of fighting, Biafra was reduced to a tiny enclave. Seeking a quick victory, the Nigerians imposed a blockade on the breakaway province. Aid workers faced a new killer: famine.
I think the most shocking thing I've ever seen is a place that is actually starving. You know, where a very large proportion of the population are dying for want of food. That is a genuinely shocking experience, and it doesn't fade with time.
They were coming with big belly, with very thin legs and white hairs, and etc. And so they were just dying in our hands. And the black children of 2, 3, 4, 5 years were so light that you had the feeling that you can break them like matches, you know.
The Biafrans ran a propaganda unit whose aim was to attract international support for their cause. Up till now, the world had ignored them. The famine would change everything.
We tried to sell the facts that Nigeria wanted to destroy Biafra in order, first and foremost, to capture the wealth that was in that region, which was oil. We tried to sell the fact that there was pogrom against the Easterners. And the world did not react to it. We then tried to sell the fact that this was a religious massacre. Again, the world didn't buy it. The Civil War was on the verge of being lost because Biafra had nothing. But then, Kwashoko, it was when that broke in the West that the world began to listen.
Images of children with kwashiorkor, an acute form of malnutrition, now began reaching Western publics.
What drew people was this image. I was born in 1961, so what was I, 7 or 8 years old? I was in 1st or 2nd grade. I remember those pictures to this day extremely vividly. The fundraising appeals, the little UNICEF boxes you'd get to go trick-or-treating at Halloween, give a few, give a quarter, give $1, give whatever you can for Biafra. The starving children Biafra. Finish your meal because, their kids starving in Biafra. That was absolutely out there.
I remember as a very small little boy sitting on the sofa and eating my tea, watching a black and white telly with Blue Peter, the children's show.
Hello. Well, we've actually made it. Thanks to your tremendous response, we've got our 144,000th parcel, which we needed, and we've got it before the new year.
Which means that we've got enough parcels not only to pay for the truck, but also to equip it out inside, and we've also got plenty of parcels to send the truck to West Africa.
I'll show you what's inside. You can hang on to that.
And suddenly seeing these very striking, actually very frightening, disturbing images of lots and lots of people starving.
It just shows what can be achieved when everybody works together, and thanks to all of you, these children are going to get the medical care that they need to save their lives.
It's suddenly, in almost real time, beaming into our dinner tables, our living rooms, with a ready-made, here's what you can do about it. Because the here's what you can do about it is what the humanitarians offered.
Biafra was the first time in which a humanitarian crisis became an international cause célèbre, which was unprecedented. No one had ever quite anticipated.
14 lorries from Britain for Red Cross work among the destitute refugees from the civil war in Nigeria, dying, it's estimated, at a rate of 20 out of every 1,000 every day, all day.
Over the next 3 to 4 months, between 1.5 and 2 million will starve to death.
A young radical generation accused the British government, with its support and arming of the Nigerians, of assisting mass murder.
The army runs Nigeria, and they were out in force for the arrival of the British Prime Minister. At last, the arrival of Mr. Wilson in his RAF Transport Command BC-10, for the talks that everyone hopes might lead to peace in Nigeria.
My purpose is to do everything that we can together to help mitigate the sufferings of your country, of its peoples, and not least of its children.
With most governments deemed to be on the side of the Nigerians, aid agencies now swung into action to save Biafra. The Red Cross and smaller agencies under the umbrella of the Joint Council of Churches intensified their airlift to break the Nigerian government blockade. the world had a new hero, the aid worker.
Frankly, I don't think you can subtract out style. This was a moment when it happened to click. You had Mick Jagger's girlfriend sitting on the sidewalk in a big fur coat raising money for Biafran starving children. You had guys with kind of great, long hair and rugged beards flying in, almost looking Easy Rider, flying planes in the night into Biafra as rescue people. It clicked with a certain moment where a mixture of existentialism, anti-establishmentism, a sort of looking for a way to go do something positive but without signing on with power. Frankly, what I sometimes think is that humanitarianism offered a way to seek glory on the battlefield without having to kill anybody.
The Red Cross sign always brings hope. Hope of relief of suffering. Hope of humanity to man.
Throughout the conflict, the Red Cross refused to take sides, arguing it was the only way of ensuring access to all the warring parties. But the new generation of humanitarians challenged the idea of neutrality. Although a Red Cross doctor, Bernard Kouchner broke with the organization when he went public to condemn the Nigerians.
Sympathies
with the Biafran cause?
More or less, I was, yes, inclined to sympathize because they were resisting to the killing at the beginning. I will never, in my life, be on the, let's say, the killer's side. It's impossible. It's impossible.
In Biafra, it was about the absolute evil on one side and the absolute victims on the other. The goodies were the Biafran, the baddies were the Nigerian Federal Army. And this could take place because there was a theme of genocide. Those people were supposedly caught in a process of extermination, and something had to be done in order to save them.
It was the conviction that the Nigerians were guilty of genocide that led most aid agencies to the Biafran cause.
The condition of the hundreds, sometimes thousands of human derelicts must be seen to be believed.
But the reality was considerably more complex than one of goodies and baddies.
Biafran propaganda began to focus principally on hunger and suffering and starving children and women suffering and these kwashiorkors, swollen-bellied children, and so on. And so the hunger became, for the first time, a weapon of propaganda.
The Biafrans hired a PR agency based in Switzerland to help them sell their cause.
Under the name of Mark Press, a small team of advertising men and freelance journalists have waged a war of words, skillfully selling to the rest of the world the case for Biafra.
They couldn't sell their political cause, so they sold their victims. And this is how they used this, this tool of famine and food and starvation. In order to save time, so they had a kind of starvation camp inside their territory, where starving people and primarily starving kids were kept to be provided to the objectives of the cameras. So you could just go to Biafra. It took a couple of days. You could have nice snapshots of starving kids and then fly back to Europe. So propaganda played a major role.
When we were there, during more than 2 years, etc., we didn't discover any pressure coming from the Biafran leader, I mean, to starve themselves, their own children. It's a farce. It's a fallacy. They didn't do so. So they used the fact, certainly in their propaganda, but well, using the fact when you say, my people are dying, you are, not only you have the right, but you have the duty of do so.
With aid now flooding into Biafra, a war that was all but lost was now prolonged for a further 18 months.
The aid encouraged the soldiers because the line of supply also reached soldiers who until then would have been starving.
The Biafran leader, Colonel Ojukwu, used the aid supplies to smuggle in weapons.
Sometimes when cash donations came into Biafra, Ojukwu told those who were donating the cash that rather than bring the cash, they should use the cash to bring arms in for Biafra, because what Biafra needed most was to defend itself.
It sort of radicalized the war. It gave the secessionist leadership the tools to continue the war, to avoid any kind of compromise, to dismiss any proposal of negotiations between the breakaway province and the federal government.
The so-called rising sun of Biafra is set forever. It will be a great disservice for anyone to continue to use the word Biafra to refer to any part of the East Central state of Nigeria.
In the aftermath of the federal victory, there was reconciliation between the warring sides, and the suffering of the Biafran people quickly stopped.
It became quite clear that when the record was assessed, that the Biafran War had gone on a couple of years longer than it need have done. And one of the things that sustained that war was the humanitarian effort. And that is a very, very difficult conclusion to draw ethically for those agencies that were involved in it.
The Biafra case has really cast a shadow over all those nearly 50 years since that time and we still haven't quite come to terms with the fact that aid is manipulated.